Okay, in this video we're going to talk about how we add and subtract with integers. Integers are numbers, basically they're whole numbers that are either negative or positive, and also it could be zero. Zero is an integer as well. We know how to add and subtract. By now, we've learned that all the way through our elementary school years, that we can add something like 6 plus 3 and 6, and we can subtract something like 6 minus 3 rather easily. What I'd like to do is introduce a different method for thinking about how we add 6 plus 3 and subtract 6 minus 3, and then using that method to help us figure out how we deal with negative and positive versions of 6 and 3. So let's start off with 6 plus 3 and 6 minus 3. If the way we were taught in elementary school is 6 plus 3, it's the same thing as having 6 of something, so we can do 6 of anything. Let's just do some stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my 6 stars. Now I'm going to add 3 more. And I know that from counting up the total number of my stars, I have 9 stars, right? And then 6 minus 3. Since I'm going to be subtracting, I still again will start off with my 6 stars. But now I'm going to take away 3 of them. So I'm going to take these away, eliminate them, and I'm left with 3, which gets me 3. But now let's think about adding and subtracting using what I call positive and negative signs. So over here, next to 6 plus 3, we can think of 6 as being 6 positive signs. Okay? And then we can think of 3 as being 3 more positive signs. Now, in this particular example, it's not a whole lot different than what we're doing with the stars. We're just adding in 3 more of the same thing that we already have 6 of. And we know we're going to get 9 positive signs, okay? Which is just the same thing as 9. And down here, let's think of, again, our positive signs. Because we have a positive 6, we're going to have 6 positive signs. And we have minus 3. Again, you can just take away 3 of your positive signs, and you're going to end up with 3 positive signs left over, which is the same thing as 3. Okay, so let's take that kind of concept. We didn't deal with any negative signs yet. If I were to put in a negative sign, it would just look like that. But now let's take this same concept and let's work with these problems here. Okay, we're going to go bring these down here. Now I'm scribbling all over my paper. So I'm going to have 6 plus a negative 3. Whoa, can't see that. Okay, so 6 plus a negative 3 would be starting off with 6 positive signs, because that's what positive 6 stands for. But when we're adding negative 3 to our pile here, we're actually going to add negative 3 signs. Now, one thing about thinking about positive and negative signs is that whenever you have one positive sign and one negative sign together, this is the same thing as a positive 1 and a negative 1, which then equals 0, which means that every positive sign, when they put together with a negative sign, they cancel each other out basically, and it equals 0. You can call this, there's several names for this, you can call this a 0 pair, because every time you can pair up 2 of them, you end up with 0, a value of 0. Or you can call it what we called it in class, and I've forgotten the name of it. Neutral pair. That was the name we came up with in class. You can call it a neutral pair because basically they're creating a neutral number, which is kind of how you can think about 0, and they're not going to impact the value. They're going to basically create a 0 that you're adding to the pile. So let's talk about what that means. We have 3 negative signs in this mess, and we have 6 positive signs. If we start combining a negative sign with a positive sign, we basically have created 3 different 0 pairs. And since these are all equal to 0, when you're adding and subtracting with 0 and it doesn't change the value of your problem, we can just think of this as just canceling all that out. And what we're left with is 3 positive signs, which is the same thing as 3. So now let's take that same way of thinking about subtracting and adding, and let's do it with the second one in this set, which is 6 minus a negative 3. And I'm going to have to change pages to do this. So let's do 6 minus a negative 3. So I'm starting off with a positive 6 number. So if I were to think of this as positive negative signs, I have 3 positive signs, or 6 positive signs. And I'm going to have to subtract a negative 3. But when I negative 3 signs, or 3 negative signs. But when I look at this pile, I only see 6 positive signs. So I need to get some negative signs into my pile, but I've got to do it in a way where it doesn't change the value, because all I'm trying to do is just still maintain 6 here, or maintain a pile of positive and negative signs that still are equivalent to 6. But I need some negative signs in there so I can take negative 3 away. So if you kind of work with the 0 pairs, if I add this to my pile, I just added a 0 pair to my pile, and I'm going to put it in a circle just so we can recognize it as a 0 pair. If I add this to the mix here, I basically added 0 to 6. I did not change the value of it, of the entire pile here. So I can add as many of these 0 pairs as I want. I can go on forever adding these, and it's not going to change the value of this pile of 6 positive signs. So since I need 3 negative signs, and by adding 1 0 pair I only have 1 negative sign, I need to add 2 more of these sets. Now I have 3 sets of 0. This is equal to 0, and this is equal to 0, and this is equal to 0. And when I add 3 zeros to 6, I still have 6. I haven't changed the value. But what I did do by putting a 0 pair in here is I now have what I see is 3 negative signs that I can now take away. So when I take these negative signs away from this entire mix, what I'm going to end up doing, hopefully as you can see that I'm canceling those out, is I'm going to end up separating these 0 pairs and taking away the 3 negative signs, but leaving behind 3 positive signs. And when I leave behind 3 positive signs and then add up those 3 positive signs to 6 positive signs, what I now have is a total of 9 positive signs, which means my answer to my problem is 9. Now, if you use a method, basically a lot of adults these days have been taught a method of seeing 2 negative signs together, meaning that, and then thinking of it as, okay, 2 negative signs cancel each other out, so I can make them both positive, and I can add 6 and 3 and get 9. It turns out that you get the same answer as the answer we got when we solved it with positive and negative signs. But telling students this rule without them seeing how it takes place makes it hard to remember that rule. So the only reason I showed you that right now is because I know some of the students in our class are already using this rule, and I just want to show you that you still get the same answer if you do it this way, as long as you know how to use this rule correctly. I'd rather you use the positive and negative signs for now until you have a good feel for working with integers, adding and subtracting integers, and then when you feel confident enough to be able to see how this rule works a little bit easier, then you can go ahead and use it. But just to show you that it still works. Okay, so now our remaining set we need to work with are these two. Oops, we pull this down so you can see it. Okay, so now we've looked at doing using positive 6 and a positive 3 and both adding and subtracting them. We've looked at using a positive 6 and a negative 3 and then adding and subtracting them. And now we're going to look at using a negative 6. I think I just messed up here. Oops, this should be positive. There we go. We're going to look at it using a negative 6 and a positive 3 and adding and subtracting them. So let's write these problems down here. I'll move the paper up since I'm done writing. Negative 6 minus a positive 3. Okay, and we're going to work with these two right now. Okay, so let's use our positive and negative signs. Negative 6 means that now I'm going to start off with negative 6 negative signs. And then positive 3 means I need to add 3 positive signs to the mix. So I'm going to put in, as I'm adding, I'm going to put in 3 positive signs into our pile here. Now, I see some positive signs and negative signs together, which means I can create some 0 pairs. So what I need to do is start joining these so I can see how many are going to end up being a neutral number, which is why we came up with the word neutral in class.